I would like to move that effective immediately, the board staff, including the board administrator, secretarial staff, and internal auditor, report to and are directed solely by and can be terminated only by the Board of Education.
I am floored by because I haven't seen or heard of this at all prior to this, and it would be very helpful in a collegial manner if we were all informed so that there's no surprises in advance. I really want to caution you that none of you have participated in make it a motion where we have to vote immediately. It almost precludes even allowing for public participation. So I just can't vote yes.
I would ask that we get a legal opinion on the legality of that motion. We have an attorney, a board attorney in the room tonight who might want to weigh in on that.
I don't think we're going to be needing Mrs. Eisenberg's help tonight.
Sandy practically took the words out of my mouth. I agree with what Sandy said verbatim.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Coombs and a second by Ms. Delmont Small. Ms. Delmont Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
No.
That's a tricky.
Mr.
Does the
Gibbons
student
can vote
member
on
get a
this since
vote?
it's personnel. So Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
No.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay, thank you. I'm also wanting to respond to community concerns that have been voiced, and I therefore move that effective immediately, only the Board of Education, through the chairman of the board, has authority to engage, direct, communicate with, or contract for legal services with any law firms or lawyers for or on behalf of the HCPSS or the Board of Education. Any previously delegated authority to any employee, staff member, or agent is rescinded. The chairman, with the concurrence of the full board, may appoint a specifically named designee.
Once again, I think it would have been fair if you really believe in transparency that you would have shared these concerns or these motions in advance.
Can you explain what you mean? Does that take out, are you talking about the superintendent's decisions for attorneys or the board's decisions for attorneys? I would like clarification
No,
on
I'm
that.
talking about any contract with legal services.
By anyone.
Would not be by the board, but by a designee of the board that will determine which legal counsels will be used for various purposes.
Yes, I'm not quite clear. If you could just explain it again. It's not perfectly clear what the motion is, what it's intended to do.
The Board of Education has the authority to contract with and engage legal services on behalf of the school system. In recent years, we have delegated that authority to the superintendent, who has subsequently delegated it further. We are rescinding all of that for the time being, and the Board of Education is going to take steps to make sure that we are responsive to the community and the concerns that have been raised repeatedly about legal services, the expense of legal services, and the details of that will be discussed tomorrow in the closed session with legal counsel.
So we have a motion by Dr. Altwerger and a second by Ms. Ellis. And I'm assuming everybody was going to give me copies of their motions. That
Yes.
would be
Yeah.
very helpful. Okay, thank you. Ms. Delmont Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
No.
Mr. Diven. No, never mind, sorry.
Ms.
Yes, it's not a personnel
Is
issue.
that a personnel issue? Okay. Mr. Diven.
Can I abstain?
Sure. Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
No.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-1.
I move that effective immediately, every group formed to review, revise, or develop special education policy or programs have members representing parents, community members, or groups, including CCAC, appointed by the Board of Education.
I think it is very important
that, especially with our parents and our special education community, that the parents have a seat at the table and that the outside experts have a seat at the table. Because just as though those of us sitting up here don't have all the answers, neither does any organization. And I believe that more voices is better. And I like the idea of the board having the ability to appoint. I think it will, since we are your elected officials, I think it would be creating more of a straight line between the constituents and their ability to sit on a board.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Ellis with a second by Ms. Coombs. And this is on the committees. Ms. Delmont Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
You said yes?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Diven.
Yes.
Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
But Dr. Altwerger.
Oh, my sheet is out of order. Sorry.
I know.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Ms. French.
Yes.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
I move that the board instruct and authorize the board's internal auditor to immediately begin a review of the operations of the Transportation Department. This was one of the areas of the OLA audit, and if you had looked back to the previous audit of 2009, whenever it was, they brought up the issue of transportation again. And also due to the fact that one of the major issues that is coming before the board is the issue of start times. And if we are going to make a decision as a board regarding start times, and since transportation is such a big piece of that decision, I think it would be very helpful for the board as well as our staff to have our internal auditor look at the transportation department to make sure that when we come to you with ideas and different scenarios for the start times, that we have the best possible, most accurate information at our fingertips.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Delmont Small and a second by Ms. Coombs. Ms. Delmont Small.
Yes?
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Diven.
Yes.
Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
Yes.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Another issue that was brought up by the recent audit was the issue of sole source contracts and how we as a county are letting sole source contracts. So I would like to move that the board instruct and authorize the board's internal auditor to immediately begin a review of all current and existing sole source contracts. As much as I love a good audit, and I appreciate so I appreciate outside agencies auditing, but we have the skill of an internal auditor, and I believe that we should utilize that. And I think it would be very helpful to help us figure out how to do the business that we do. As you know, a large part of the business is contracts and getting services. And this isn't our money, this is taxpayer money, and we want to make sure that the dollars that we spend as well as possible to make sure that we get what we need for the children in the classroom. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Delmont Small and a second by Ms. Ellis regarding the sole source contracts. Ms. Delmont Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
Yes.
Mr. Diven.
Yes.
Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
Yes.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Again, in the interest of transparency, I would move that effective immediately, the Howard County Public School System representative on the County Council's Budget Review Committee shall be the Board of Education's internal auditor or his designee, and that he abstain from all votes of the committee and act solely as a source of information for the committee and the Board of Education.
As much as I love a good audit, it is very difficult to audit yourself. And since the current representative is a former Board of Education member who voted on the budget that the County Council's committee is looking at, and also the fact that she no longer is a member of the Board of Education, since this is to be a school system representative, I believe that it should be
someone at the school system who has the expertise. And I also I don't envision him having a vote, but being more of a conduit of this board and the school system and providing the information that is needed for them to do their job in their audit.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Coombs and a second by Dr. Altwerger. Ms. Delmont-Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor.
No.
Mr. Diven.
Yes.
Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
Yes.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-1.
Given that there have been a number of incidents in our schools involving bullying, threats, and violence that have impacted student mental health and physical well-being across this county, I move that the board be provided with a report on the responses and plans for dealing with those incidents in a systematic way. That report should include an update on the implementation of the Student Voice for Inclusion and Equity program and how it will deal with racist social media posts, and how the report will consider solutions proposed by students. Our board members are truly concerned about maintaining a safe school environment for all students, as well as hearing the voices of our students, parents, and community members around this issue. Ms. Valancourt said that we do need to talk about this in an administrative session, and we can look at what really makes sense, but we need to make sure we have a plan for dealing with issues that are impacting our students right now.
I think this is a great idea, and I want to make sure that we recognize all bullying, because we have had other instances of bullying, and especially with social media, this is something that I think I can safely say none of us up here had as students. It's a different world, and there's some very good guidance we have. For example, there's Grace's Law that talks about this.
We have a motion by Ms. Ellis with a second by Dr. Altwerger. Ms. Delmont-Small.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor. Mr. Diven.
Yes.
Ms. Valancourt.
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger.
Yes.
Ms. Ellis.
Yes.
Mrs. French.
Yes.
Ms. Coombs.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
I move that the Board of Education immediately reconstitute its Operating Budget Review
We
Committee.
have a motion by Ms. Delmont-Small with a second by Mrs. French regarding the Operating Budget Review Committee reconstitution. Ms. Delmont-Small?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
No.
Mr. Diven?
Abstain.
Abstain. Ms. Valancourt?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Ms. Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Ms. Coombs?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1-1.